After being reborn, both my sister and I came back to life. This time, she gave up the gloomy, emotionally unstable rich husband to me and instead married into the recently bankrupt Carter family. Claire, it's your turn now to experience what it's like living with a freak, Emily muttered with a sneer. Later, Ryan clung to me constantly, nuzzling into my arms and mumbling, "Baby, just love me a little more." "So, what if I give you $3 million every month and act a little unstable? What exactly did I do wrong?" The moment I opened my eyes in this life, I heard Emily's voice shouting that she wanted to marry into the Carter family. That's when I realized he had been reborn, too. My parents' expressions immediately changed. They had favored Emily ever since we were little. Even though I'm only a year older than her, I was always the one expected to give in. Now that the Carters had gone bankrupt, marrying into that family meant nothing but suffering. "Let your sister go," they said. "She's older than you. She'll be more mature and better able to handle it." When Emily saw that they were rejecting her decision, she burst into tears on the spot, throwing a tantrum and even threatening to go on a hunger strike. Eventually, unable to bear it, my parents gave in. My mother turned to look at me with a cold voice and said, "You'd better be grateful to your sister for this." I nodded silently. She didn't want him, yet I was still expected to feel thankful. As she walked past me, Emily leaned in and whispered, "This time, it's your turn to live with the freak." I gave a quiet smile. Did she really think life in the struggling Carter household would be any easier? Poverty is the root of all misery. In our previous life, when faced with the same choice, Emily had chosen the Quinn family without a second thought. She dreamed of marrying into high society, living the glamorous life of a rich wife. "Claire, you can deal with the mess left behind by the Carters," she had said with disdain. But who would have imagined that Ryan Quinn, the eldest son of the Quinn family, was emotionally disturbed on their wedding day? He threatened her, warning her not to get any strange ideas and to stay obedient at home as Mrs. Quinn. Later, Emily discovered he was self-harming in his study. When she tried to escape, the bodyguards dragged her back and locked her inside the house. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore and ran off with another man. Ryan found her and they divorced shortly after. From then on, Emily's reputation was completely ruined. Meanwhile, with the support of my husband, Ethan Carter, I built my own career from scratch and became a successful entrepreneur. Ethan often said, modern women should create their own value. They shouldn't live by depending on men. As long as Claire wants to do something, I'll always be there to support her from behind. Because of words like these, Ethan was widely recognized in our social circle as the model husband of the modern era. I became the envy of countless wealthy wives. But that kind of life didn't last long. During a family gathering, Emily called me into her room and set it on fire, taking me down with her. In my final moments, she clung to my leg, her face twisted with hatred. "Claire, I've always outshined you since we were kids. Why the hell do you get to live better than me now? If I'm going to die, I'm dragging you with me." Even now, the burning pain from that fire still haunts me. Looking at Emily in this life, so sure she's going to win, I can only shake my head. If it weren't for me, what right would she have to help the Carter family rise again? My wedding was scheduled one day before Emily's. Over the past few days, she'd been flaunting how well Ethan treated her, how attentive and caring he was every single day. Meanwhile, Ryan hadn't come to see me even once. Every time I heard her talk like that, I couldn't help but smile. The Carters had gone bankrupt. What else could Ethan offer besides being nice to her? When a man wants to treat you well, you're the moon in the sky. But when he no longer wants to, you're just the dirt beneath his feet. At least the Quinns were practical. In just a few days, they had already sent over piles of betrothal gifts. Under my firm insistence, my parents reluctantly agreed to include a portion of those gifts in my dowry. Our alliance with the Quinn family was something our family begged for, hoping to elevate the James family's business to the next level. As for the Carters, our families had been engaged since childhood. Back when the Carters were still wealthy, we were considered a perfect match. But now that they'd lost everything, my father didn't want to be accused of being a gold digger, so he had no choice but to stick with the engagement. On the wedding day, I finally met Ryan Quinn. His tall nose and sharp features were framed by a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. There was a cold, imposing air about him. Absolutely no sign of someone who would self-harm. When the officiant cheerfully announced that the groom could now kiss the bride, I was momentarily stunned and instinctively took a step back. Ryan's hand tightened around my waist, forcefully pulling me against his chest. His cold lips pressed down on mine. That night, he sat on the sofa, tie loosened and hanging loosely around his neck. His shirt was half open, revealing a chiseled chest beneath. It was then I finally caught a trace of that instability in him. Suddenly, he reached out and gripped my chin, bending over to meet my eyes directly. His gaze was dark. "This marriage was something your James family begged for," he said. "Now that we're married, you'd better put away any inappropriate thoughts. I'll give you $3 million a month. All you need to do is play the role of Mrs. Quinn in front of outsiders. You won't have to do anything else. I don't like accepting things given to me unwillingly, and if you don't behave, I can't promise what I might do." Before Ryan could even finish his sentence, I pulled down his tie and kissed him. From the moment earlier, my gaze had been lingering on the inside of his shirt. Because he was leaning over, the defined lines of his toned muscles and tight abs were fully on display. Who wouldn't be a little dazed seeing that? But when I finally let go of him, I saw that the tips of his ears were flushed red. I couldn't help but reach out and touch his abs, leaning in to whisper by his ear, breathing softly. "You've got a great body, babe. Now that we've said our vows, shouldn't we move on to the next step?" Ryan's body stiffened and his voice came out. What are you doing?" I raised an eyebrow. "Exercising my rights as your wife. Is that a problem?" Sensing my challenge, Ryan let out a low chuckle. In the next second, he took off his gold-rimmed glasses and pinned me down with that overbearing intensity and searing heat that left no room for refusal. I felt like I was melting under his touch. As I drifted into a sleepy haze, I had to admit there really was a difference in strength between men and women. I was completely worn out. But he showed no signs of exhaustion. When I woke up the next afternoon, it was already late. There was ointment on the nightstand, clearly something Ryan had prepared. At least he had some sense of decency. I took a shower and headed downstairs to eat. The butler handed me a supplementary credit card. "Mr. Quinn said, you can buy whatever you like." I took it, beaming. This feeling, having money without having to wake up early, hustle through business meetings, or please picky investors, was amazing. In my past life, after marrying Ethan Carter, I moved into a rundown rental. His family told me to live frugally, but they splurged shamelessly themselves. It didn't take long for them to squander all the dowry I brought with me. Checking the time, I figured Emily must have already married into the Carter family by now. My parents had told me there was no need for me to attend the wedding. I wondered how she was feeling now face to face with a family of wolves in sheep's clothing. Thinking of that, I felt even more determined to please my financial backer, Ryan Quinn. In the days that followed, I served Ryan diligently. When he ate, I picked food for him. When he was tired, I massaged his shoulders. When he wanted a bath, I'd rush to run hot water immediately. At first, Ryan seemed a bit uncomfortable with all of it. "I can do these things myself." "No way," I replied. "Didn't you tell me to act like a proper Mrs. Quinn? My hardworking husband deserves to be taken care of." Honestly, it was because I'd taken so much money. Doing nothing would make me feel guilty. Ryan didn't reply, his expression cold as ever. But I caught the slight secret curve of a smile on his lips when he turned away. When I had nothing to do, I'd bring him lunch at the office. In my past life, after becoming a businesswoman, I finally understood why 9 out of 10 CEOs had stomach issues. They really didn't have time to eat. One day at Ryan's office, I noticed his secretary wearing a deep V-neck blouse, gazing at him like she was about to melt. During lunch, I casually said, "Your secretary is pretty. Great figure, too." Ryan immediately understood what I was getting at. Without even glancing at me, he replied coldly, "Don't be ridiculous." I shot him a glare in secret. But after that, whenever I noticed Ryan had replaced his secretary with a man. I heard the previous female secretary had been transferred to assist another executive. So it turns out he's just a stubborn Sundara after all. I originally thought my relationship with Ryan would continue to improve, but one day he suddenly started avoiding me. Every night he used work as an excuse to sleep in the study. We used to at least have breakfast together. Now I could barely catch a glimpse of him. Even if I were clueless, it was obvious he was avoiding me. Today, I had planned to wait at home and ask him directly what was going on, but I got a text from a friend inviting me out for afternoon tea. When I arrived, I was surprised to see Emily there, too. The usual flashy jewelry she wore was gone, and the bag she carried was last year's model. Looks like she'd already bled quite a bit financially for the Carter family. But on the surface, she still wore that bright, cheerful smile. Only when her eyes landed on my outfit, every item a limited edition, did a flicker of envy flash across her expression, which she quickly smoothed over. Someone at the table asked her when she planned on having a baby. Emily's smile faltered for a split second. My husband says there's no rush. He can't bear for me to become a mom at such a young age, so we're not thinking about that yet. Everyone immediately praised Ethan for being such a rare, understanding husband. Watching Emily put on this act, I could tell she was starting to realize the truth. Of course, Ethan wasn't in a rush. Just wait and see. The one who will be anxious later is her. When she caught sight of the amused smirk on my face, Emily glared at me viciously. But when her gaze dropped to the faint red mark on my wrist, she smiled smugly. Claire, what happened to your hand? I heard Ryan has a bit of a temper. Did he hit you? I glanced down at the red mark. Ryan did cause it, but not from hitting me. It was from him tying my wrists with his necktie. That man really was a beast. Just remembering what happened that night made my cheeks burn. But in everyone else's eyes, I probably looked guilty or embarrassed. And that only made Emily feel even more pleased with herself. A loveless marriage really is sad, sis. After the gathering ended, Ethan showed up in a cab to pick up Emily, causing another round of admiration from the group. I had already called for the family driver to come get me. But to my surprise, the one who came was Ryan. Before I even stepped outside the gate, I spotted him sitting in the car waiting for me. Our eyes met and my steps instinctively quickened. Just then, Emily suddenly bumped into me, throwing off my balance. I nearly fell, but a passing waiter reached out to steady me. Thank you, I said to him, only to look up and see Ryan already out of the car, his gaze icy cold, locked onto the waiter's hand still on my shoulder. Ryan marched over, his eyes scanning me up and down to make sure I wasn't hurt. Without a word, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me away. Maybe his presence was just that overwhelming, but no one dared say a thing. They only looked at me with pity in their eyes. Emily then mouthed something slowly. I didn't even need to hear it to know. Good luck, sis. Once we got into the car, Ryan didn't touch me or say anything. He simply drove, silent the entire way. His expression gradually softened, and the suffocating tension around him started to fade. Somehow, this man had managed to calm himself down on his own. When we got home, Ryan headed straight for the study. I couldn't help but call after him. You're not sleeping in the master bedroom again tonight? He turned to look at me. The implication in my words couldn't have been clearer, an unspoken invitation that needed no further explanation. Ryan stepped toward me, suddenly grabbing my waist and pulling me into his arms. A twisted yet alluring smile curved his lips. Aren't you afraid of me? I raised a brow and pressed my fingers against his throat. Afraid of what? This time, I whispered. Let's try something different. Ryan's breath hitched. The restraint in his eyes vanished completely. Claire, he said darkly. This time you're not allowed to stop halfway. His hand slowly rose to my shoulder, his voice low and ominous. Just now when he touched you, was it here or here? Oh no, this man was ready to settle the score. Before I could even react, Ryan sank his teeth into my shoulder. I couldn't help but let out a soft moan. He immediately lowered his head and kissed me, sealing off any sound. That kiss felt like it carried a kind of magic, pulling me in completely until all I could do was instinctively wrap my arms around him. In the middle of the night, I felt a gentle hand caressing my cheek. Claire, you're the one who started this, Ryan whispered. I won't hold back anymore. And from now on, don't even think about running from me. In the days that followed, Ryan spent more and more time at home. He stopped sleeping in the study altogether. Every night, he held me as we fell asleep. In my past life, I'd learned from Emily that Ryan kept a lot of self-harm tools in that study. Naturally, I hoped he'd stay away from it as much as possible. Sometimes when he was deep asleep, he'd subconsciously nuzzle into my chest, murmuring, "Baby, just love me a little more." It was a stark contrast to the cold, distant man he was during the day. According to Mr. Chen, the butler, Ryan used to rely on heavy doses of sleeping pills every night just to fall asleep. But ever since we started sharing a bed, he hadn't taken a single one. Knowing I was helping him, even just by being there, filled me with quiet happiness. while Ryan was at work, I wasn't idle at home either. With the knowledge I brought from my past life, I used the money Ryan gave me along with part of my dowry from the James family to invest in several promising funds and stocks. In a short time, I made a substantial profit. Now, I was in every sense a rich woman. Forget about being some power-hungry career woman. In this life, all I wanted was to be a wealthy one. There are way too many expectations and labels placed on women, whether it's being a working professional or a stay-at-home wife. But none of those should define us. As long as I want it, I can be whoever I choose to be. Later, when I went back to the James house to pick up a few things I'd left behind, I overheard Mom on the phone with Emily. From their conversation, I realized Emily had called to borrow money, and not a small amount either. But Mom didn't have that kind of cash on hand. So Emily asked her to borrow it from someone else, saying she needed startup capital for a business. She even told Mom that if her own mother wouldn't help her, she might as well be dead. Eventually, Mom agreed. At that point, I lost interest in eavesdropping and left. In my past life, Ethan Carter had also tried to get me to borrow money from my family so he could start a business. I refused. A little financial help might patch things up temporarily, but it could never bring lasting stability. If you want a good life, you have to earn it yourself. So, I started from a tiny storefront. I didn't have money to hire help. So, I did everything myself. Every investment I made came from endless rounds of drinking, fake smiles, and social maneuvering. And what was Ethan doing back then? Putting on airs at home, refusing to work, indulging in smoking, drinking, gambling. He was the full package. Emily thought that as long as she had enough capital, she could gain freedom and become a successful woman admired by everyone. But she never understood that true freedom doesn't come easily. If you want to break out of the cage, you need real skills to back it up. What I didn't expect was that even with everything falling apart around her, Emily still found time to cause trouble for me. Rumors started circulating that Ryan was a psychopath and that I was being abused. People said the marks on my body were from him hitting me. A little digging and sure enough, the source was my dear little sister. But the truth was those marks weren't from abuse. Still, I couldn't exactly go around explaining how I got every one of them, could I? That night, I bit Ryan hard on the shoulder. Can't you go easier next time? Do you even know what kind of rumors are going around about us right now? Ryan froze, then let out a dry, bitter laugh. Maybe I really am a psycho. Then he pulled me tightly into his arms. If I am, would you stop wanting me? There was a trace of fear in his voice, so faint it would have been easy to miss. I looked up and gave him a gentle kiss. No way. These days, who doesn't have a little mental baggage? I've got my issues, too. So, let's not judge each other. I could feel how much Ryan cared for me. He gave me everything I asked for without hesitation. For someone like me who had never truly felt loved before, it was the first time I experienced what it meant to be genuinely cared for. I'll admit I was moved. When Ryan heard what I said, he let out a relieved smile like he had been carrying a fear for a long time. And now, after hearing me casually refer to our flaws as just small quirks everyone has, the weight finally lifted. Because I cared, I wanted to know more about him. Ryan had scars all over his body, deep overlapping marks, including clear signs of past wrist cutting. I had once carefully asked him where they came from. He didn't want to answer. If I pressed too hard, he would pin me down and distract me in other ways. Eventually, I found out a few things from Mr. Chen, the old butler. He had been with the Quinn family for many years and knew about things no one else did. Mr. Chen told me that when Ryan was 10 years old, he had been abducted by human traffickers. At the time, Mr. and Mrs. Quinn searched desperately for him, but couldn't find a trace. After exhausting all efforts, they gave up and adopted another boy from an orphanage, naming him Sean Quinn. No one expected Ryan to return 3 years later. Covered in blood and dirt, his eyes vacant, hair matted, and clothes in tatters. The servants thought he was a beggar and even beat him with brooms. In the end, it was Mr. Chen who recognized him and rushed him to the hospital. While Ryan lay unconscious in a hospital bed, Mr. and Mrs. Quinn were happily attending Sean's parent-teacher conference. When they heard Ryan was back, they didn't rush to see him. Instead, they went straight to Sean to comfort him, assuring him that even though his big brother had returned, nothing would change how much they loved him. To them, Sean was still their perfect son. Ryan heard every word from his hospital room. After coming home, Ryan was no longer the sunny, cheerful boy he once was. He became withdrawn and distant. No one knew what he had gone through in those 3 years. But instead of getting him psychological help, Mr. and Mrs. Quinn accused him of having changed, of being cold and distant, unlike Sean, who was always sweet and cheerful. In the end, they poured all their love and attention into Sean. At school, Sean led the class in mocking Ryan. They bullied him for being quiet, made others think he was the imposter, while Sean was the real Quinn heir. Ryan finally snapped. He beat up every kid who had tormented him, and split Sean's head open in the process. Mrs. Quinn didn't ask for an explanation. In front of everyone, she slapped Ryan hard across the face. From that day forward, everyone believed Ryan was the problem. No one at school dared to befriend him, and no one dared to bully him again either. As Mr. Chin finished telling me this, his eyes turned red with emotion. "I watched him grow up," he said. "No one knows the pain he carries inside. That's why when he decided to leave the Quinn family, I followed him without hesitation. I just didn't want him to be completely alone with no one who truly cared." I gently patted Mr. Chen's arm to comfort him and told him that I would take good care of Ryan. As for parents like that, well, there was nothing to feel nostalgic about. It would be better if we never crossed paths again. But just a few days later, Mrs. Quinn called. Ryan and I were in the middle of dinner when he got the call. She invited both of us to come back for dinner the following evening, claiming there was something important to discuss. Ryan didn't want to go, but in the end, we agreed to attend. The moment we walked in, we saw all three of them, Mr. and Mrs. Quinn and Sean, chatting happily on the couch. As soon as they saw us, their smiles faded slightly. Sean, on the other hand, seemed unchanged, warm, friendly, and enthusiastic as he greeted me, even complimenting me for looking prettier than I did on our wedding day. I gave him a polite smile and nodded. After a few rounds of small talk, I quickly realized how skilled Sean was with words. Everything he said was designed to flatter and charm. But behind those words was calculation and falsehood. It was clear he was trying to win me over, to pull me onto his side and stand against Ryan. He even subtly showed off the scar on his forehead now and then, constantly hinting that Ryan had a violent streak, that it might only be a matter of time before he turned on me, too. Turns out when it comes to playing the victim, guys can be even more manipulative than girls. I smiled sweetly and fired back. "Oh, that's impossible. My husband only beats up trash." Hearing that, the whole room fell silent. Sean's smile froze on his face, clearly unable to keep up the act. He made an excuse and stepped away, not saying another word to me. After that, Mr. Quinn started talking to Ryan about the company, then abruptly changed the topic. "Your brother just graduated college this year. You should start preparing for a handover. Step aside and let him take over your position. From now on, your job will be to assist him." The Quinn Corporation had only been a modest business a few years ago. It was because of Ryan's relentless efforts that the company had grown to what it is today. So when Mr. Quinn said that, Ryan's voice turned cold. "And why should I?" Mr. Quinn slammed the table. "Because you're my son. I built this company and I'll hand it over to whoever I want." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Then go ahead. Let's see who the board listens to. Me or you?" Mrs. Quinn, seething with rage, stormed over and slapped Ryan across the face. "How did I raise such a son? Talking to his parents like that. If I had known it would come to this, it would have been better if those traffickers had killed you back then. You should have never come back." Ryan didn't say a word. His head was turned to the side, fists clenched. He didn't eat a single bite that night. Instead, he grabbed my hand and pulled me away. In the car, Ryan was silent. I was trying to think of something to comfort him with when he suddenly slammed on the brakes and pulled over. "I'm going to buy something." "Wait in the car," he said. Before I could even respond, he stepped out and walked off. I waited for a long time, but he never came back. Worried that something had happened, I got out of the car to look for him. I walked a long way, but couldn't find any sign of him. A creeping fear began to rise inside me and I decided to turn back. That's when a group of thugs blocked my path. "Well, look what we have here," one of them sneered. "A little cutie out so late. Why don't you keep us company?" I tried to keep my composure. "Mind your own business," I snapped coldly. The leader of the group laughed and reached out, trying to grab my shoulder. "Come on, don't be like that. We'll treat you real nice. I dodged to the side and backed away a few steps. If you don't get lost right now, I'm calling the cops. They weren't fazed at all. I kept backing up while they closed in, step by step, until I found myself against a wall with nowhere else to go. I gripped the self-defense spray in my purse, ready to strike the moment they got any closer. But before they could touch me, one of the men was yanked back by the hair hard, and slammed face first into the wall with a sickening crack. Blood splattered as he held in pain, clutching his head. I looked up and saw Ryan. His eyes were blazing red with fury. Before the others could even react, Ryan had already knocked them to the ground one by one. His fists flew without hesitation, each strike fierce and unrelenting, his hands soon stained with blood. The thugs ended up fleeing in terror, crawling away with their faces covered. Ryan looked at me, still frozen in place, and let out a mocking laugh. Scared? He pulled me into his arms. Even if you are, I won't let you go. In this life, you can only be mine. I came back to my senses, wrapped my arms around him, and whispered back, not scared. But since you already beat them up, that means you're not allowed to hit me. Ryan paused, then buried his face in my neck and let out a low laugh. You idiot. Right on cue. My stomach growled loudly. We hadn't eaten dinner. Ryan was in a noticeably better mood than before. He took my hand and said we were going to get something good to eat. Later though, I noticed fresh wounds on Ryan's hands. That was when I realized after we got home, he must have gone somewhere to hurt himself again. He didn't want me to see him that way. Didn't want me to know he was still struggling. He no longer wanted to die. But sometimes the urge to hurt himself still overwhelmed him. He couldn't control it. That's why he kept a small blade hidden on him at all times. His therapist told me this behavior stemmed from deep internalized self-loathing. So, I took the blade away. I told him that from now on when it happens, he can't just shut me out. He's not allowed to go through it alone. We'll face it together. Ryan agreed. After that, Ryan's parents called a few more times asking us to visit. We refused every time. Not long after, my own parents showed up uninvited with Emily in tow. They claimed they had heard rumors I was being abused and had come to check on me out of concern. I couldn't help but scoff inwardly. If they truly cared, shouldn't they have rushed over the moment they first heard the rumor? Sure enough, after only a few words, they revealed their real reason for coming. Emily wanted to borrow money from me. Judging by the timing, it was clear the money she had left was pretty much drained by the Carter family. They were leeching off her. And now that she had no one else to turn to, she came looking for me. Of course, she didn't admit any of that. She just claimed her business was expanding and she needed more capital, so she came to borrow funds. Naturally, I refused. Emily's face changed. You have so much money and nowhere to spend it. Your husband doesn't even let you go out. You might as well give it to me. I'm going to be a successful woman one day. Don't say I didn't warn you. If your husband loses it one day, your only support will be your family. Are you sure you want to burn this bridge right now? I gave her a calm smile. Burn the bridge? You still think you have a leg to stand on? Honestly, I thought you gave up on dignity a long time ago. Emily turned red with anger, pointing at me and stammering, unable to get a word out. My dad's face darkened. Claire, are you really going to ignore your parents' wishes? Sorry, I said. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. Dad raised his hand to slap me, but the bodyguard stepped in and blocked him. I waved my hand, signaling them to throw all three of them out. Emily tried to curse at me from the doorway, but my parents dragged her away, embarrassed. It was the first time in my life I had openly defied my parents. But I had finally realized that enduring silently wouldn't earn respect. It only encouraged further abuse. From upstairs, Ryan had seen and heard everything. He came down and wrapped his arms around me from behind. They made you angry, he said softly. Want me to make them disappear? I shook my head. Let karma handle it. Later, Mom called me again and immediately unleashed a stream of scolding. She told me that if I didn't help Emily, she would sever ties with me as her daughter. Perfect. I hung up and blocked her number without a second thought. At a banquet a few days later, I ran into Emily again. She was glowing, putting on an even more smug expression when she saw me. Claire, did you think I couldn't succeed without your help? She said triumphantly. This time, my husband helped me secure funding from Mr. Shao. The Carters will be back on top in no time. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned to look at Ethan Carter. So, you're the one who introduced her to Mr. Xiao? Ethan couldn't hide the pride on his face, though he tried to act modest. I'd do anything to help Emily. I gave him a cold, mocking smile. Some people fake it so long they start to believe it themselves. Ethan took Emily's hand and led her away. Come on, Mr. Zhao's over there. Let's go thank him properly. Before leaving, Emily gave me a defiant glance and muttered under her breath, whatever you can do, I can do too. In my past life, I had also got an investment from Mr. Xiao. But by then, I already knew exactly what kind of man Ethan was. He never had the ability to secure that kind of deal himself, so I stayed cautious. Sure enough, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Sometimes the cost is more than one can bear. Ryan came over and held my hand. His eyes searched my face. What's wrong? I smiled and shook my head. Nothing. This is Emily's choice to make. As for me, I'm just going to stay focused on my own path. The banquet lasted until late. Most of the guests chose to stay the night at the hotel, and Ryan and I were no exception. The next morning, as I was heading downstairs for breakfast, I happened to pass by one of the guest room doors just in time to hear Emily's voice coming from inside. You disgusting bastard, Ethan Carter, she screamed. To get that investment, you sent me up to sleep with Mr. Xiao. You couldn't seal the deal yourself, so you served up your wife instead. You're not even human. Then came a loud smack. Emily had slapped him hard. Ethan didn't hold back. He slapped Emily hard in return and shoved her to the floor. What did you think got you that investment? He shouted. It's because you couldn't borrow money anywhere else. Do you think I wanted to do this? If you had access to cash, would I have had to resort to this? Then he sneered. Don't go telling people about this. Mr. Xiao has tons of photos of you. If those go public, I can't help you anymore. With that, Ethan left the room. Emily collapsed where she was completely defeated. When she looked up and saw me standing there, her eyes turned feral. She charged at me, trying to grab me. Why didn't you tell me? She screamed. You knew. You knew. Why didn't you warn me? I sidestepped her easily, my voice flat. Because this was your choice, wasn't it? Emily fell to the ground again. Then, unexpectedly, she started laughing. So, in your past life, you went through the same thing I did, didn't you? You're just like me. You're ruined, too. We're both filthy. Neither of us is better than the other. We're both trash. She kept repeating it. We're both trash. We're both trash. As if saying it over and over could drag me down to her level and make her feel better. But the next thing I said shattered her completely. I'm not. Emily's eyes widened. Impossible. With what I saw yesterday, how could a woman like you have gotten away? Because I was more ruthless than they were, I said quietly. Emily let out a disbelieving laugh. That's not possible. A woman can't be more ruthless than a man. I didn't reply. I walked past her and left. In my past life, Ethan had gotten me drunk and delivered me straight to Mr. Zhao's hotel room. What they didn't know was that years of corporate parties had trained my tolerance. I didn't get drunk easily and I had been on guard from the start. As soon as I stepped into the room, I started recording on my phone. When Zhao pinned me against the wall, I struggled with everything I had. Ethan had stood just outside the door, doing nothing to stop it. Zhao thought I was already in the bag and started spewing filthy threats, confident and careless. I grabbed a bottle off the table and smashed it against his head. Then I held the broken neck to his throat. If you come any closer, you'll die, I warned. Zhao snarled. If you kill me, your life is over, too. Then we die together. Maybe it was the look in my eyes. Or maybe I really did scare him, but Zhao backed off. He didn't have the guts to test me and let me go. Why did I go with Ethan to that room when I already had doubts? Because I needed that investment and I had no other options. I needed leverage against Zhao. This was my only shot at turning things around. It was a desperate gamble, but I won. Thanks to the recording, Zhao ended up investing in our company, and we finally began to stabilize. Emily wasn't as brave. She didn't even have the courage to walk away. She couldn't bear the idea of giving up the investment she'd sacrificed so much to secure, so she let herself be blackmailed again and again. But nothing stays hidden forever. Rumors soon started spreading about Emily and Mr. Xiao. People gossiped behind her back. My mother was utterly disappointed in her, saying Emily had disgraced the family's name. One by one, people began to distance themselves from her, and instead they started cozying up to me. Meanwhile, my relationship with Ryan only grew stronger. He publicly transferred half of his company shares to me and cut back on all business dinners and socializing. He came straight home after work, avoided every female social interaction and treated everyone else with a cold indifference. But when he looked at me, his gaze was always soft. Once again, I became the envy of every woman around me. People started asking for my secrets. How did I make my husband so devoted? What was the trick? A month later, Ryan and I attended a major industry summit. That's where we ran into Emily and Ethan again. Emily was no longer the arrogant woman she once was. She looked tired and worn out, her makeup caked on to cover the bruises that still peeked through. People whispered and snickered around her, but she still tried to act composed, chatting with others like nothing was wrong. When she saw me, her eyes skimmed right past me like I was a stranger. Naturally, I didn't bother greeting her either. What I didn't expect was that she had drugged the water brought to me by a waiter and instructed someone to separate me from Ryan. When I lost consciousness, she dragged me to a room on the second floor. "Claire, don't blame me," Emily said. "Why do you get all the good things in both lives, and I get all the suffering? Mr. Xiao promised if I helped him get to you, he'd let me go. Just cooperate. Don't resist. Just sleep with him once and it'll all be over." She placed me on the bed and rushed out in a panic. I forced my eyes open and saw a bloated, greasy figure standing by the bed. Mr. Jiao was walking toward me step by step. I fumbled inside my purse for the small knife. One Ryan used to carry back when he used to self-harm. Just as Xiao reached out to touch me, I gathered all my strength and drove the blade into his palm. He screamed, clutching his bloody hand. "You crazy! Why the hell do you have a knife?" I collapsed to the floor, then dragged the blade across my own arm. The pain jolted me back to clarity. Staggering to my feet, I ran out of the room. Barely able to stay upright, I stumbled into someone's arms. I tried to push them away, still dazed until I heard a familiar voice. "It's me, Claire." I looked up and saw Ryan's anxious, devastated face. Only then did I finally let go and passed out in his arms. When I woke again, I was in a hospital bed. Ryan sat beside me, gripping my hand tightly. The moment I moved, he sprang to his feet and ran to call the nurse. He helped me take my medication, following the nurse's instructions carefully. Then he wrapped his arms around me and refused to let go for a long time. I stroked his hair and murmured, "Don't worry, I'm okay now." Ryan's voice was dark, low. "The thought of that man even trying to touch you." I wanted to cut his hands off. By that logic, I teased. "Does that mean no man can ever touch me again?" "Of course not. Claire belongs only to me." He tightened his embrace around me, but I smirked. "Didn't I see you shaking hands with some women at the summit, too? Should I be mad about that?" It was supposed to be a joke, but Ryan actually nodded. "You're right, Claire. Go ahead and cut off my hand as punishment." He even reached for a knife and placed it beside me. When I didn't move, he looked a little hurt. "You're not going to do it? Is it because you don't care? You're not even mad that I touched another woman?" I sighed. "You lunatic." The next day, I found out from one of the bodyguards what had happened while I was unconscious. When Ryan realized I was missing, he lost his mind searching for me. The chaos nearly brought the entire summit to a halt. When he found me in that second-floor room, Emily had tried to block him and he kicked her across the hallway. After taking me to the hospital, Ryan ordered the bodyguards to beat all three of them, Emily, Ethan, and Zhao, within an inch of their lives. If the summit organizers hadn't intervened, things might have gotten out of control. Emily ended up being treated in the same hospital. After I recovered, I visited her once. She lay motionless in the hospital bed and looked at me coldly. "You must be feeling so smug right now." I sat on the couch across from her. "This is all just the result of your own choices." Emily laughed sharp and bitter. "I just don't get it. We came from the same background, same parents. Why is it that everything you choose works out and everything I choose ends in disaster? I can't accept it. Why does fate always favor you?" "Fate never favored me," I said quietly. "You've been wrong from the very beginning. What matters isn't the choice itself, but who's making the choice." Emily's face twisted. "So what? You're saying I'm weak and you're brave?" I shook my head gently. No, your biggest mistake is that you've always tried to get what you want through other people. You never once relied on yourself. But every gift from fate comes with a price tag. You can't have it all. If you're too greedy, it'll destroy you. The person who ruined your life, I added, was never me. Emily stared at me wide-eyed. I stood up and walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard her screaming, almost hysterical. Liar. I didn't lose. You're lying. After I was discharged from the hospital, Ryan clung to me even more tightly. He blamed himself for everything that had happened. Convinced that it was his fault for not protecting me. He never wanted me out of his sight again. My father later told me after Emily was discharged from the hospital, Ethan divorced her. Lately, he seemed to be chasing after the daughter of some newly rich businessman. My parents, having no other options, ended up committing Emily to a psychiatric hospital. As for Ryan, he wasn't about to let Mr. Show off so easily. In less than a month, Ryan had completely crushed Zhao's company, forcing it into bankruptcy. Zhao was left buried in debt and had to live every day on the run. Eventually, he was arrested for robbery and involuntary manslaughter. Later, I saw Emily on the news. Somehow she had escaped from the psychiatric facility. She showed up at Ethan's wedding armed with a knife and stabbed him to death at the ceremony. Ethan died on the spot. When the police arrested Emily, she kept muttering, "You ruined my life. It's all your fault." Due to her mental state, she wasn't sentenced to prison. But it's likely she'll spend the rest of her life in a psychiatric institution. After everything, my mother somehow got a new phone number and called me in tears, begging for help, saying she'd have to rely on me for the rest of her life. I gave her a few perfunctory words and hung up. They raised me, so yes, I'll repay that debt in my own way, but if they're hoping for love, affection, or warmth from me, they're bound to be disappointed. I never received those things from them either. That winter, I got pregnant. When Ryan found out, he was over the moon, literally dancing with joy. He didn't even know if he was allowed to touch me. In the end, I had to be the one to hug him first before he finally picked me up and spun me around with happiness. 10 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Mr. and Mrs. Quinn wanted to visit the baby, but we refused. Ryan looked at our daughter, eyes full of tenderness. "Claire," he said. "I'll do my best to be a great dad." "We both will," I replied. Even though neither of us ever knew what a parent's love felt like, our child will. She'll grow up surrounded by more love than she'll ever need. She'll be the happiest child in the world.